G'day guys, how are you? My name is Andrew and I'm going to start a new series of learning VB.net. I've noticed there's lots of tutorials on YouTube, but some of those tutorials are up to 5 years old, and a lot has changed in VB.net since then. And for those of you that are coming across from VB6, this would be perfect for you guys, this series I believe. So I'm going to basically go through core features of the Visual Basic language, and then what we can do is we can use those core features when developing a Windows Phone app or a Windows 10 tablet app or whatnot, anything really. There are some differences with using Windows Phone, a different framework for starters, but we're going to go through all that, and hopefully you guys get something out of this, and we can have some fun along the way. So let's begin. The first thing we want to do now, I presume you guys have already downloaded and installed Visual Studio, and you're not really sure where to go from there. You're not really sure which sort of language you want to choose, and that's fine. I believe a good language to start off with is the Visual Basic one, which is why I've chosen that for the series. In the future we'll definitely do C#, as it's kind of Visual Basic's older brother. But for those of you that are just now sort of starting out, Visual Basic I believe is perfect. There's not too much difference in the C# from the Visual Basic, just the syntax more or less. But if you are starting out programming, C# may be a bit intimidating, all the brackets and different symbols and stuff, they all mean something. So yeah, let's get to it. So yeah, you want to basically click on Visual Basic, and you're going to see Universal Windows 8 Classic Desktop. You won't see this one. This is to do with programming with the Raspberry Pi using the Visual Basic language. But we want to go to Classic Desktop. Now you've got a few options here, whether you want it to be a console application, which is basically just that black box. But that's fun and all, but it's kind of boring if you want to start programming, because I know a lot of people just kind of want to dive into it. So we're going to go with the Windows Form application, and we're going to name it, first of all we're going to basically, I can just call it tutorial, sorry, I'll just say tut1. So this will be tutorial 1 on the in this series of Visual Basic learning. So let's jump into it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to see is this Forum 1. Your layout's going to look a little bit different to mine, because I've got mine in full screen mode just to get a larger display when coding. But yeah, you're going to be presented with this window. Of course you can drag it and make it however big you want. You can make it as small as you want too. On the right here you're going to see properties. Now on the properties is where you can basically control its properties of the window. So whether you want the window, like say you want the heading to say my first program, it's going to be up there on the title of the window, as you can see just there. Now you can change the icon, you can tell it whether you want the background color to be, perhaps I want it to be light blue. Well, there you have it, it's now light blue. You can do so many things in there, but they're probably the standard things that most people sort of look at first. If you didn't want the window sort of not to be sizable, then you could tell it it's a fixed window, therefore they can't maximize it, minimize it, and they can't drag it to sort of change its size. That's how it is. And the next thing that most people sort of look at is the starting position of it. So whether you want it to be in the center or wherever you like to be. We'll make ours open up in the center just for the tutorial. And yeah, let's get to it. So over here on the toolbox there's a stack of tools in here, too many to name for one video, but have a look through there. There's a bunch of tools. What we want to do for this particular tutorial is we want to get a button. So using that, once it's sort of highlighted, we can click and drag it to our Windows Form just like that. And you can of course make the button as big as you want, or you can make the button as small as you want. Now once the button is selected, so that's the Windows Form is selected. Once the button is selected, so it has like these sort of Microsoft Word clip art, sort of drag your picture, maximize it, minimize it, whatever. You can then go to properties, and you can of course again in there you can change details about it. So for example, right now it says button 1. I'm just going to get it to say click me, just like that. And if I want to change the font of it, I can definitely do that in here. Now all this stuff I'm doing right now with the properties, you can do with code. You can write this to do this. But for those that are beginning, it's probably a lot easier just to use properties. Now you're going to see here it has design button 1. When coding, you're going to say like button 1 dot equals or something like that, yeah? So button 1 dot text equals, and you can change the text to say click me. But up here the text is click me. This is kind of like our design, and this is our sort of code name, if that makes sense, and you're going to see that right now. I'll show you what I mean. So in order to trigger an event, you have many options, but the first thing that most people do is just double click on the button itself, okay? And in here it's going to trigger the click event. So what I mean by events is, for example, I have button 1 selected. If I was to say double click the button, if I was to drag my mouse over the button, say if the mouse was to enter or hover or whatnot, you can tell it to do certain things. But I've chosen, so what's going to happen if I click the button? Now, I'll show you first off, there's two ways that we can make a message box happen. The first way that most people use in C# is they go MessageBox.show and then use the brackets, and then using these quotation marks it says here, enter the text as the dialog result. So I'm going to write hello world like everybody. Hello world. Now if you go one step further and do a comma and then do some brackets again, this is going to be like our title, and it says there displays a message box in font, specific object and specific text, the owner, so in other words the title. So I can just say my message box. Alright, if you want to go one step further again, we can do another comma and we can tell it like what buttons we want to use. So for example, we can write message box buttons dot OK. So what this is going to do is it's going to show a message box with the text hello world, with the title my message box, with the buttons OK, and that's it. So let's jump into it. To debug your program, press F5 on your keyboard. It's a shortcut of doing it. Depending on how new or old your computer is will obviously depend on how fast it can debug, but the first debug usually takes the longest. After that it's a lot quicker than this. Alright, so here we have it. Our program is now up and running, it's live, and this is our code. Now let me just go back to the program. There it is there. So if I click the button, there we have it, message box. So my message box, and the text is hello world, and a button is OK, and that's it. That was all we programmed our program to do. Now, for those sort of younger ones out there that are used to sort of writing text messages like LOL or Ruffle or whatever it may be, you can definitely do that too with the message box. So, for example, how would you spell message with 3 letters? Of course, MSG. So that's message box. Use your brackets, and it's saying, pretty much do the same as before. It basically gives you here like an example of what you want. So in this instance, we want to do what we want the message box to say in the first line. The second group will be the buttons, so the message box style, and the third will be the title. So let's begin. So hello world, comma, the button. So it's saying we can write message box style dot, and there's a style here, so whether you want it to be OK cancel, if you want the message box to be an information message box, so it will show like an icon. Once again, you can do this with the other way, with the spelling out message box as message box like before. So say I want it to be an information and another comma, and now I'm up to the title, so I'm just going to say my message box title, and that's it. Once again, press F5. It should debug a little bit quicker now, and once I click me, it's done that noise, it's got an icon there, and yeah. So there you go guys, that's how you can make a message box happen. This is the first tutorial of many tutorials to come, depending on if anyone even watches these videos. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please comment and subscribe for more of them, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.